All right, another persuasion lesson. Persuasion lesson right here. If you're listening, I'm drinking water this time. In the previous video that I made, or in another video I made, I drank a very, very famous soda brand. This time around, I drank a very, very famous healthy beverage brand, or not sure if it has a brand, namely good old H2O water. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself from way back in the day. Actually, a little story from when I was a kid. I don't exactly remember when or how this happened, because I was told this is what happened by my mother. However, way back in the day, when my mother wanted to bring me along to some activity or make me do something that I really didn't want to do, she would attempt to sway me by saying, "Everyone else is doing it. You're the only one who don't want to do it. Come on, let's go. Everyone else is there." "Yeah, but I don't want to do it," is what I told her. And she just said that, "Oh, why do I even bother? Let's go regardless. I can't persuade you." And, that's fine. And so some 30 odd years later, because I was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years when I told her this. Maybe I was younger. I don't even remember. I don't even remember how old I was. I vaguely even remember me doing this. I kind of remember now that she told me, but maybe those are fake memories. I don't really know. Anyway, here is the lesson though, really. Because the real lesson, or the real sort of like revelation, came before me when she later on told me, some 30 plus years later, how I was always so stubborn as a kid, how she never could convince me to go along, even by saying something like, "Everyone else is doing it." And that actually made me realize something. Well, it made me realize something about myself. Number one, I'm hard to convince, because once I've decided on something, I am gonna do it, and I'm quite stubborn, and I'm not stopping until I've done it. That's precisely that's how I roll. I will not stop. I will not relent. And if you think about it, this kind of relates back to the self-hypnosis lesson that I did in another video. But rather, it also reflects the way that people try to persuade you by mentioning how many people are doing what they want you to do. Here's what I mean by that. Let's use the news media as an example, because they're a great way to study how to not do persuasion, because they're trying to mock and ridicule everyone who's against the narrative, or who's against the position that they take on certain stuff, such as, for example, vaccines. I forget precisely what the context was, or the description that they used. However, there was something. It was during the shandemic that we had a couple of years ago. Remember the plandemic, with a so-called very dangerous virus where everyone had to wear a mask and where everyone had to be vaxxed because it was very, very dangerous, the virus, and we could all die. Remember that? Well, nobody died, or very few people died. I certainly didn't know anybody who passed away from the virus. Whatever. Here's what I do remember, though. So the news media were, of course, actively trying to pressure everyone to take the vaccine. And in order to do so, they didn't explicitly say that everyone else is taking the vaccine and you're worried if you don't. Here's what they did instead. Instead, they wrote disparaging and negative stuff about those who didn't take the vaccine. Or as they put it, amongst vaccine skeptics. Here is a paraphrase quote, which I vaguely remember from a news outlet with respect to those who didn't want to take the vaccine back in the day. Many of those who refuse to take the jab are also flat earthers, don't believe in climate change, vote for Trump, and believe in aliens. Think about that. Analyze this for a second. Yes, it might be true, but that's only a small fraction of those who in general didn't want to take the jab. Most sane people who didn't want to take the jab probably don't believe in aliens. So what if they vote for Trump or Kamala or Joe Biden? Or so what if they're skeptics with respect to climate change and whatever? It doesn't matter at all, because we're talking about being skeptics with respect to a vaccine that has been hastily pushed to the market. And I don't know if you remember, but I certainly remember how people passed away. Some people died after taking the jab. So it's not like it was totally safe to take the vaccine, especially not in the beginning. Anyway, notice how they're not writing how some of those, in fact, a lot of those who were vaccine skeptics, were higher educated, were successful millionaires, successful rich entrepreneurs, were what's the word I'm looking for here? Philanthropics, and it did good for their community. Because I know plenty of people like that as well. And they weren't described like that. No, they were all lumped together under the umbrella term of those who vote for Trump because Trump is crazy. Right? It's so dumb. And that's precisely the error that the news media is making. And now it's even worse. You know, it's kind of funny, because every time I open any any news outlet, any news source, I'm imagining like a choir of people screaming in agony. Ah, 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 ah. That's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining like a crowd of people screaming in agony and pain and fear, because there are so many I guess, negative headlines. And there are so many extreme situations, and they always exaggerate. The news media always exaggerates and really wants to scare you. And so the point is, that's a terrible way of persuasion, or of doing persuading. There's a quote. I don't recall who wrote the quote. I don't exactly recall precisely how it was, but it went something it went something like this. The wrong way doesn't become the right way, even though many walk it. Think about that. If a large portion of people move in the wrong direction, that doesn't mean that it's the right direction. It just means that a large number of people are misguided. And so why can't that be true? So getting back, and here's the logical fallacy when it comes to this argument of persuasion. You can't persuade people to make them want to do something by telling them that all the sane and normal people are doing it, so why aren't you doing it? Or, if you're not doing this, then you're weird because everyone else who's normal do it. Or, if you're doing this, then we're going to lump you into the category of crazy, insane people who belong in the nut house. Because that's precisely what the news media is doing. And that's precisely the sort of persuasion tactics and scare tactics and really aggravation tactics that they want to use. This is polarizing. This is making people being polarized and creating conflicts. Well, it's creating conflicts. And it's making people pushing each other, or it's making people actually waging war against one another. Anyway, lots and lots of persuasion lessons here. If you want to learn more about persuasion and sales and energy transfers, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description, wherever you are watching and or listening to this. And I'll see you there. Bye.